Warning content disclaimer. Matt Knows is an independent commentary channel that examines global political trends through historical and factual lenses. The views presented are for educational purposes and do not reflect an endorsement of any political ideology. Viewer discretion is advised. We support respectful debate and value freedom of speech. Hate speech or harassment will be removed. This video presents multiple expert perspectives. It is not intended to label or defame individuals but to encourage informed discussion. Viewer discretion advised. Hello, and welcome back to Matt Knows. Imagine the chance on January 6, 2021, when Trump supporters stormed the U.S. Capitol. Many wore red, "Make America Great Again" caps, the symbol of Donald Trump's MAGA movement. Was this just a fringe protest, or the beginning of something more sinister? We'll unpack MAGA's beliefs and history to ask, is it merely right-wing populism, or does it share dangerous traits with 20th-century fascism? So what exactly is MAGA, and why does it matter globally? MAGA stands for Make America Great Again, Trump's 2016 campaign slogan that turned into a broad political movement. It's a nationalist, nativist ideology founded on the idea that the U.S. was once great but has lost its way to foreign influence and immigration. MAGA advocates an America First agenda, protectionist economics, very tight borders, and a return to traditional values. This brand of populism has reshaped U.S. politics and even inspired allied nationalist movements abroad. Today we'll explore MAGA's origins and rise, and why many experts warn it echoes elements of classic fascism. The MAGA movement truly coalesced with Trump's 2015 to 2016 campaign. On June 16, 2015, Trump declared his run for president and unveiled "Make America Great Again" as his rallying cry. He pitched MAGA to millions of voters who felt left behind by globalization and angry at political elites. MAGA's core message, America has been weakened by immigrants, trade deals, and multiculturalism, and only a strong leader can revive its glory. This resonated especially in rural and industrial areas. From the start, Trump promised economic protectionism and strict immigration bans, even calling in 2015 for a total and complete shutdown of Muslims entering the U.S. Such rhetoric drew together people who felt betrayed by progress, giving MAGA a passionate, loyal base from the very beginning. The MAGA movement truly coalesced with Trump's 2015 to 2016 campaign. On June 16, 2015, Trump declared his run for president and unveiled "Make America Great Again" as his rallying cry. He pitched MAGA to millions of voters who felt left behind by globalization and angry at political elites. MAGA's core message, America has been weakened by immigrants, trade deals, and multiculturalism, and only a strong leader can revive its glory. This resonated especially in rural and industrial areas. From the start, Trump promised economic protectionism and strict immigration bans, even calling in 2015 for a total and complete shutdown of Muslims entering the U.S. Such rhetoric drew together people who felt betrayed by progress, giving MAGA a passionate, loyal base from the very beginning. Political scientists note that MAGA exhibits several hallmark traits of authoritarian movements. Cult of personality. MAGA supporters often revere Trump as a savior figure. Studies describe Trump's base as a personality cult, akin to those around Mussolini or Perón. Followers show unquestioning loyalty to Trump, seeing him as infallible and uniquely chosen to protect the nation. His own slogans, "I am your voice," and "I alone can fix it," mimic the grandiose style of classic strongmen. Scapegoating and nationalism. MAGA frames America's problems as caused by foreign or minority groups. Trump's proposed Muslim travel ban and the promise to build a Mexico wall epitomize targeting outsiders. Experts note this is straight from the fascist playbook. During Trump's first administration, Latino immigration was described as an infestation, using language that evokes an enemy within to blame for society's ills. MAGA's ideology often mixes patriotic nationalism with xenophobia, celebrating an idealized past, blood and soil imagery that is largely mythic. Disdain for democratic norms. MAGA figures have shown open contempt for traditional checks and balances. In 2020 to 2021 they sought to overturn a democratic election outright. Congressional hearings revealed Proud Boys and Oath Keepers plotting to stop the peaceful transfer of power. Commentators at the time warned that MAGA strategists aimed to pack courts and bureaucracy with loyalists to Trump, even suggesting that opponents, including whole communities, would be punished under their rule. Such tactics, replacing neutral institutions with partisan loyalists, closely mirror fascist methods of consolidating single-party control. Militarism and violence. Many MAGA-aligned groups embrace violence as a political tool. The Proud Boys, with their quasi-uniform black and yellow attire, and the Oath Keepers, a militia recruiting ex-soldiers and police, have repeatedly engaged in street brawls and intimidation. Their participation in the Capitol riot shows a willingness to use paramilitary force to achieve goals. This mirrors the paramilitary brown shirts and black shirts of 1930s fascism, who used intimidation and violence against opponents. Scholars note that MAGA's characteristics bear uncomfortable resemblance to historical fascism. Both Hitler's Nazis and Mussolini's black shirts built charismatic cults around a single leader and scapegoated minorities as threats. One Yale philosopher bluntly called Trump's MAGA the most obvious example of a fascist movement about to take power. MAGA's emphasis on a strongman leader and traditional values recalls the Men and Anthem rallies of 1930s Europe. Analysts also point out MAGA's cultural tropes: male-dominated authority, ethno-nationalist, blood and soil, pride, and nostalgia for a mythical past, are classic fascist themes. Even today's far-right governments, for example, Italy's Giorgia Meloni or Hungary's Viktor Orbán, use America First language and anti-immigrant platforms very similar to MAGA. In summary, the symbols, rhetoric and tactics of MAGA, when compared side by side with Mussolini's Italy or Franco's Spain, show many parallel elements of fascist ideology, even if MAGA leaders insist on a different label. The stakes of this movement are huge. U.S. and foreign analysts warned that a Trump return in 2025 would be a watershed. Historians told The Guardian that a Trump victory would pose a clear threat to U.S. democracy, given MAGA's anti-pluralist agenda. Under MAGA leadership, legal protections and minority rights could be sharply curtailed, and the U.S. might withdraw from international commitments. Indeed, European experts said Trump already pursued a strategy of elimination, transformation, and subjugation abroad, breaking alliances and challenging the world order to reshape it in America's image. They warned that a second MAGA term might similarly embolden authoritarian-leaning leaders globally. What if MAGA had lost in 2025? Without Trump's galvanizing presence, the movement's future would have been uncertain. Some MAGA loyalists worried there was no obvious successor. As one MAGA activist admitted, not having the right leader, the movement could totally fall apart, much like the Tea Party did in 2010s. Still, Trump's ideology wouldn't have gone away. His endorsements and media ecosystem would have kept MAGA alive in Republican politics. MAGA would have continued to shape debates on immigration, race, media, and power. MAGA's long-term influence depended on how Americans responded. Would they embrace this brand of strongman nationalism, or would historical lessons about fascism give pause? When Donald Trump stormed back into the White House in January 2025, the world took notice. Within weeks he reneged on earlier deals and slapped 25% tariffs on imports from Canada and Mexico, warning that not enough was being done to stop illegal immigration. He even teased annexing Greenland and belittled allies, moves unprecedented in modern U.S. politics. Trump has framed these actions as fulfilling the Make America Great Again mandate, but critics say the speed and scope of these measures echo tactics from authoritarian regimes. The question looms: are we witnessing MAGA evolving into something dangerously un-American? Trump's first months back have been marked by an aggressive internal crackdown. He pledged the largest deportation effort in American history, vowing to use military resources on the border and declare emergencies. The administration deployed National Guard units to new defense zones on the U.S.-Mexico border, where troops can detain anyone who crosses illegally. Civil rights groups have cried foul. For example, the Supreme Court blocked the administration's attempt to use a colonial-era 1798 statute to expel Venezuelan migrants without due process. Trump reacted angrily on social media, branding the court's decision a bad and dangerous day for America. In other instances, local officials who resisted federal immigration raids found themselves targeted. In April 2025, a Wisconsin circuit judge was arrested for allegedly helping a court visitor evade an ICE arrest. Outside the courthouse, protesters shouted, "Free the judge now," highlighting the unprecedented reach of these policies. Alongside immigration sweeps, the new administration has attacked its critics. Federal judges ordering hearings or blocking Trump's orders have drawn presidential ire. For example, after a judge paused Trump's deportation of gang-affiliated migrants, Trump publicly demanded that judge be impeached, a move denounced even by Chief Justice Roberts. Meanwhile, the White House moved swiftly to control the press. Reuters and Bloomberg were booted from the permanent White House media pool in April 2025, and Trump advisors rescinded journalists' legal shields and even pushed to dismantle the Voice of America. In short, independent media voices are being squeezed at exactly the same time courts and local officials are being undermined, a pattern some observers note has chilling parallels to authoritarian playbooks. Internationally, Trump's second term has unleashed renewed economic warfare. Early on, he paused looming tariffs on Canada and Mexico in exchange for promises of tougher border enforcement. But that truce collapsed quickly. By March, the 25% tariffs on Canadian and Mexican goods took effect, along with steep new duties on Chinese imports. Canada's leaders vowed retaliation, even threatening $100+ billion in counter tariffs, and Canada's new Prime Minister warned the old relationship with the United States is over. In fact, a Reuters poll noted that Trump's tariff war and his repeated threats to annex Canada are appending decades of close trade ties. White House spokespeople even joked that tariffs would vanish if Canada became the U.S.'s 51st state. In Mexico, similar panic ensued. President Claudia Sheinbaum agreed to station 10,000 guards on the U.S. border and deploy new technology against smugglers, but insisted Mexico would not be bullied. Mexico's economy minister warned that Trump's strong-arm tactics had already led to sweeping tariffs and raised fears of a global recession. Across the Atlantic, Europeans braced as well. At an informal EU summit, leaders declared they were prepared to fight back if Trump imposed duties on EU goods, even as they appealed for calm negotiations. And then there's Greenland. In spring 2025, Trump publicly pressed NATO's Secretary General on U.S. control of the island, insisting, "We need Greenland for international security." He said frankly, "I think that will happen," when asked about annexation. Danish officials erupted in outrage. Denmark's defense minister called Trump's comments far-fetched and a violation of alliance friendship, and Greenland's leaders united with Copenhagen to reaffirm that Greenland will never be a piece of property that can be bought. In short, America's closest friends and neighbors find Trump's new bluster deeply unsettling and unprecedented. What is MAGA's ideology today, and does it bear resemblance to 20th-century fascism? Scholars define classical fascism as an authoritarian, revolutionary form of extreme nationalism with features like anti-liberalism, one-party leadership, and often a violent cult of personality. MAGA certainly emphasizes intense nationalism and leader worship. Trump presents himself as the lone solution to America's problems, railing against the deep state and promising to protect the country from external and internal enemies. His rhetoric scapegoats immigrants and migrants, portraying them as existential threats, echoing the xenophobic scapegoating found in past fascist movements. During his campaigns and presidency, Trump has also drawn military imagery and toughman posturing. At rallies, he frequently argues that America can only be great if strong men defeat the threats, a nod to the fascist idea that only one person can solve the problems of society. However, there are also key differences. Historic fascists like Hitler and Mussolini were expansionist, building empires, believing in racial hierarchies, and seeking new territories. Trump's MAGA is mostly the opposite, it's isolationist. He is deeply critical of international organizations, NATO, the EU, and has shown zero interest in imperial conquest. Today's MAGA also remains embedded in formal democracy, its leaders still run in elections, even if they challenge their results. No major MAGA figure openly adopts uniforms or paramilitary squads on the scale of 1930s brown shirts, though fringe militias have sometimes aligned themselves with MAGA causes. In fact, some historians caution that using fascist too loosely can obscure this difference. They note that in the 1920s, 30s people who were actually in fascist parties celebrated the label, whereas today's MAGA leaders denounce it. Nevertheless, MAGA's Project 2025 blueprint, which envisions a powerful presidency that can ignore courts, purge bureaucrats, or declare endless emergencies, alarmingly echoes a fascist-style unitary executive model. In short, MAGA today mixes militant nationalism, social conservatism, and loyalty pledges to one man. It includes some classic fascist-like cultural elements, appeals to blood and soil, patriotism or patriarchal family values, and a strong man's contempt for compromise. But it also retains traits unlike old fascism. It operates within the U.S. Constitution, for now, and has not adopted a formal one-party system or single guiding ideology beyond Trump's own persona. Opinion is fiercely divided. Some experts say yes. Retired U.S. General John Kelly, Trump's one-time chief of staff, publicly remarked that Trump certainly falls into the general definition of fascist. In October 2024, the New York Times reported Kelly's comment, and Harris herself bluntly called Trump a fascist on national TV, igniting the debate. Scholars like Sarah Churchwell have pointed out that MAGA's themes of patriotic mythmaking, anti-immigrant fervor, and nostalgia for a fictional past are eerily reminiscent of fascist propaganda. Others highlight that MAGA's strategy involves mobilizing discontent, glorifying violence against adversaries. January 6 was itself an example of political intimidation, and using state power aggressively, all signals fascism watchers warn about. Others urge caution. They note that while MAGA's tactics are authoritarian, the word fascist carries a specific historical meaning. One historian argues that Trump's regime is indeed illiberal and authoritarian, but insisting on the fascist label goes further than most mainstream supporters would accept. Unlike Mussolini or Hitler, no MAGA leader calls themselves fascist. Actually, these figures work to distance themselves from that charge. Some experts also point out that U.S. checks and balances are still holding. For example, courts are actively blocking aspects of the MAGA agenda, which was not true under classic fascisms. Even so, Trump's early moves have tested American institutions like never before. Public opinion reflects this split. An October 2024 ABC/Ipsos poll found that 49% of Americans considered Trump a fascist, as defined by the survey as someone who seeks to act as a dictator, disregards individual rights and threatens or uses force against opponents. Many of his supporters strongly disagree with that label. As NPR noted, some experts treat the fascist claim as a useful, distress signal that democracy is at risk, while others warn it is an imprecise smear. The MAGA movement is more than a slogan, it's a global phenomenon with deep political roots. The evidence is clear that MAGA has dramatically shifted America's path, increased border militarization, trade battles with longtime allies, and an unprecedented push to undermine institutions. Some see these actions as alarmingly close to historical fascist tactics, nationalistic dictatorship, paramilitary intimidation, suppression of dissent. Others see them as very extreme populism but not quite fascism, since MAGA still operates within elections and hasn't made every aspect of society totalitarian. We've presented the facts, the comparisons to history, and expert views on both sides. Now we leave the judgment to you, the viewer. Is this the slip into American fascism that some fear, or is it something different? We welcome your thoughtful comments and discussion below. Let us know where you stand on the MAGA movement, remembering to keep the debate factual and respectful.